Not sure how many people are joining us. May not be too many. Yay. All right. We have people showing up. Sweet. Okay, so thanks for coming today. This is your Ask an Ambassador Anything student panel. So we've got a couple of ambassadors from the team for the College of Letters and Science. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second, but first wanted to just say congratulations on being admitted to UC Davis. We're super thrilled for you. We're glad that you're here today. We wish we could have seen you in person at an on-campus event, but you know, we're all stuck at home. So thanks for joining us. If you have questions, hopefully you do, feel free to put them in the box, the Q&A box. Just open that up and submit your questions. If there aren't that many of you, we might be able to let you ask your questions and have a conversation live. So we can go that route too, if you're feeling up to it. Maybe, you know, some people have been shy, so it's okay to just type your questions and leave them as anonymous too. So I'll just start by introducing myself. My name is Mark Von Cannon. You've probably been getting lots of email from me, congratulating you, welcoming you to the College of Letters and Science at UC Davis. I've been on campus for 19 years, but I'm also a graduate of UC Davis and this college in psychology. So I have some experience with being a student. It's been a long time. This building right here was built while I was a student at UC Davis, and now that's where my office is. So anyway, I'm going to start with Beitong since we can't see her, but she is on the phone. So Beitong, why don't you introduce yourself and then throw it to one of the other ambassadors. Just let us know your name, your major, your class level, and maybe one thing you love about UC Davis.
Oh, hi. Yes, thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. My name is Beitong. I am a double major student at UC Davis. My majors are economic and statistics. This year is my third year at UC Davis. One thing that I really love about UC Davis is it's a really peaceful college town, and then people are really friendly. I love the community here. Yeah, and it's a really good environment for students who really want to dedicate it to their learning. All right, and then do I miss anything?
Nope, that sounds good.
All right, I will pass it to Lynette.
All right, hi everyone, my name's Leanne Taylor. I'm a fourth year linguistics student at Davis. And one of my favorite things about Davis has been the amount of opportunities that I've had. I've been able to drive buses, study abroad, and tutor in the community. So there's so many things that you can do at Davis, and things that I never thought were possible for myself. Kiwi?
Yeah, hi, my name's Keely, or Kilvio. I'm a third year math major, and what I like about Davis is also the opportunities, like you can do almost anything. Like there's clubs for most things, there's classes for most things, like most things that you want to learn, there's some resources on campus to help you.
All right, so that's everybody so far on the call. If anybody has questions, put them in the Q&A box, or if you'd rather ask your question live, just raise your hand. Use the little raise your hand feature and I will unmute you. But if you don't have questions, I will start. Okay, nobody has any questions yet. All right. I know a couple of you have changed majors or maybe are double majors. Leanne, do you want to talk about the process? I know you switched from math to linguistics. Do you want to just talk about what that looked like for you and the process for changing majors?
Sure. So like Mark said, I came in as a math student and then realized I didn't really like it that much. And so actually I switched to statistics before I found linguistics. But while I was a statistics student, I took an introductory linguistics course and liked it so much and realized I didn't like stats so much that I changed my major. And it was a really simple process. All I had to do was talk to my advisor in statistics as well as the linguistics advisor, and just a simple form on your student information system that you'll get acquainted with at orientation, and you're able to switch. And the same thing goes for double majoring as well. So if you come in with one major and then realize that you like something else just as much, declaring a second major is similar to that process.
Beitong or Kiwi, do either of you guys have experience with that?
Yeah, I also switched my major a few times. Not much else to add besides like emphasizing the fact of it's a very simple process. Like, and like you shouldn't feel bad about wanting to switch majors just because it's so common. Like who you are when you start college and who you are a year after you start college, and then even further from that will probably be two different people. Like you'll learn and grow a lot every time. So yeah, those are just my 2 cents on the changing majors.
Yeah, I think the national average is that 75% of students change their majors at least once. So if you're not sure, if you're undecided, or if you do end up changing your major, you would be in good company. And at UC Davis, we make it pretty easy, just like everybody said. And in terms of double majoring, a lot of students, probably the majority of students on campus at UC Davis who are double majors have at least one major in the College of Letters and Science. So a lot of students choose that route to double major and get a lot of experience in 2 different disciplines so that they're maybe more marketable when they graduate. Beitong, did you have anything to add before I ask another question?
Oh yes, so I do change my major as well, but I didn't change my first major. I came in as an economic major and I stayed with economic, but I was a bit struggle with my second major. Since economic major is relatively a smaller major, so basically I only need 64 units to declare the major, to get a major degree. So I have plenty of other space and time for a second major. And then normally after I talk with my major advisor, I was informed that I can either go with mathematics, statistics, psychology, or even sociology and communications. But I decided to go with mathematics first because, the specializations under economic, one of the most popular one is data analyst, and it's easier for me to find a job after I graduate. So, but after I go on with the major, I figure out that math really isn't that related to economic. They're kind of separate. So, and so I went back and talked to my professors again, and of course the major advisor. They suggest me to switch to statistics, so I switched. It was a bit struggle, but I got lots of help. Yeah, and that's all I want to share.
Okay, perfect. So let's switch gears here for a second. So how about you want to talk about the transition to college? Maybe what the pace looks like. I mean, do you want to explain what the quarter system is, how many weeks that is, what the benefit of being on the quarter system is? Who wants to start? Kiwi, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, so the quarter system goes fast. Yeah, it's like I definitely recommend like easing into it. My first quarter took 17 units, which is on like the higher side of average. Average is like 12 to 16. And yeah, it was a lot. College classes are definitely different from high school classes in terms of difficulty and depth, how in depth you go into topics. So yeah, as far as like academically adjusting, I'd say just take it slow and like learn how to live on your own first, and like learn your study habits, learn about yourself before you feel like diving into more coursework.
Anybody else have anything to add about the quarter system? What the weeks look like?
Sure. Like Kiwi said, it is a lot different from high school classes in that you're not going to the same class every day. Well, in some cases, like there are classes that you do go to every day, for example, beginning language classes.
Mhm.
However, it's not, your schedule is going to look different from day to day, and classes do require I don't know, a lot more work outside of class since you're not meeting every day. So like keeping up with readings and things like that. The quarter system is going to be different from what you're used to in high school just because it's 10 weeks as opposed to, I think, 16-week semesters. So things do go by really quickly, which is nice if you're a natural procrastinator like myself, because things just go on so quickly, things are constantly due, that you never end up getting too behind on one thing, if that sort of makes sense. So in terms of just transitioning, yeah, take it easy. I mean, you know yourself, so kind of go with what you think you're able to do. But my first quarter at Davis, I did 12 units, which is about 3 classes typically. And that gave me plenty of opportunity to try out new clubs and just ease into like finding groups and friends on campus, and kind of just learn how the groove works at Davis.
Great. How about living on campus? So we often get questions about the different dorms. And I know, well, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure you can't actually like pick a dorm or even request a specific area. But Leanne, I know, is has a preference for Segundo. She's Kiwi, I'm not sure where you lived for your first year. Were you on campus?
Yeah, I was in Tercero. Right by the
Okay, perfect. Do you guys want to talk about the difference between those two areas, maybe a compare and contrast? Kiwi, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I can start. So Tercero, I personally really liked it, but that's also because I had a really positive experience there. Um, I feel like everyone's, well, I feel that's not a super general statement, but like everyone's experience is obviously different. And I was just lucky enough that my floor, everyone I lived with, was very sociable. So I always had friends to go eat at the dining commons with, or like to explore campus with. Um, so I know that's one thing people always hope for, that their floor is very sociable and they can make friends on their floor. But as far as like Tercero itself, I liked it, but I did like Segundo more as far as like the dining common and like the high rises went. But on the other side, I know when I was applying for housing, it was like you can select a preference, but like there's no guarantee. But on the flip side of that is like all the Tercero dorms are just about the same, whereas Segundo has the high rises and then it has the super old dorms. So you're kind of trying your luck there. I mean, I don't know as much about Cuarto besides that they're small and people that I've talked to that live there. But like they didn't have a complete dorm experience just because it's suite style. You're with like 3 to 4 people compared to living on an entire floor of people. But it is a lot more quiet for people that want kind of that experience. Yeah, that's how my views. Except at Tercero, you will smell the cows for a little bit, but you do get used to it. By my 3rd week, I didn't smell them anymore. I would just notice it when my like parents would visit and be like, "It smells like cows." I'm just, can't smell it.
Anything to add, Leanne, about Segundo?
Well,
So people on Segundo.
I always have things to say about the dorms. I know you're partial to Tercero, Mark, because you lived there.
Although the building is no longer there, it's long gone, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's really sad. But one of the perks about Tercero is that most of the buildings are newer. QE mentioned that the Segundo has like really old dorms from like when my roommate and we lived in a Segundo high rise, and she was like, yeah, my parents met in like the high rise opposite ours, and I was like, wow, okay, so these are a little bit old. However, I kind of really liked living in the high rises, but you know, teach their own. I would just want to comment about the relative location of each dorm really quick, because some people are interested. But anyhow, Segundo is right on the edge of campus into Lake Davis, so it's near Rite Aid, just right across the street from Rite Aid. It's also like a 5-minute walk away from Trader Joe's in case you need to buy snacks or anything like that. And it's still on campus, so you're really close to just a bike ride or walk away from campus. Tercero is on campus kind of within the university, but it's close to a lot of the science buildings. So the science lecture hall and the science lab building, it's really close to. So if you have any classes that are like always there, it's going to be very helpful for you. And then like you mentioned, Cuarto is different in that it's on campus. So if you're riding a bike, it's really only about 30 seconds to a minute biking to campus if you hit the light right. But it's off campus and also close to Trader Joe's, which is a big selling point for me. But yeah, each one kind of offers its own unique living experience, but you really can't go wrong with either one. Like Tercero, you get the UC Davis cow experience. Segundo, you're, in town, and then Cuarto is the suite style living, and you have the chance to live in like the newest building because they just built one. But that's all I have to say.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to add that while choosing an area may not be an option on the housing application, the living learning communities, living learning, something like that, LLC, they are particular to different areas. Now, what I don't know is if you pick the African Diaspora LLC, is that assigned to Tercero and is that known on the application? I don't know that specifically, but the living learning communities are in different residential areas. And it might be a specific floor in a building. It used to be when I was a student, but that was a long time ago, that you would get a whole building, but the buildings were smaller back then. So anyway, yeah, that's good. Thanks guys about the housing. We do have a question about housing for the deposit for housing. Will that defer to the next quarter if fall quarter is online? So I don't know the answer to that question. The question is, if you pay your deposit for housing, will it defer to next quarter if fall is online? I don't know the answer to that question specifically, but what we did this quarter, was we actually reimbursed students when they moved out. I think it was prorated if there were days in, but so likely we would do that. But the thing with housing this year is, even though we guarantee housing for first year students, we have had to put an asterisk by that this fall, because if we do have in-person classes and students move on campus, it might be that students have to distance from each other, and that might mean only one student per room. So we may not be able to guarantee housing for the first quarter, and not exactly sure what that will look like for the rest of the year either. It should be on the housing information page. I think it's housing.ucdavis.edu. And it should be part of the application process too. Hopefully they're updating some of that information there. But yeah, I do know that the guarantee for housing has an asterisk next to it for this fall, unfortunately, just because we're still so unsure about what's going to happen in fall. So speaking of online, do you guys want to just talk about what your experience has been taking classes online? I know QE, you've enjoyed it, but maybe the others of you have had different experiences. Do you want to talk about your classes, but maybe also anything else that's been going on online, whether it's, you're getting advising, you're participating in a club or an organization, and you're having remote meetings, anything like that. Do you guys want to talk about that?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about it. So, I do love the online learning experiences so far because all the professors are being extra understanding since it's a special period of time, and then they understand that students might need a longer period of time to get used to the online learning platform. So in fact, before this quarter starts, I already received lots of email from my professors saying that there's no need for you guys to worry too much about the change of learning platform. It just and then they also mentioned that the university actually suggests all the professors to give at least a week to all the students so we can get used to this new type of learning. I would say, always communicate it with your professors because they are the person who are in charge of designing all the curriculums. They know what they're going to teach. If you have trouble, never hesitate to talk with the faculty members here. Yeah, I mean, so far everything goes pretty well. And then I would say just always remember that like it's your responsibility to put in more effort to make sure everything goes right. So yeah, that's all I want to share.
Great. Kiwi or Leanne, do you guys want to talk about your experiences now?
Yeah, I can just touch on mine.
Great.
So yeah, like Mark said, like I've personally been enjoying it just because in class sometimes I would have trouble like keeping up with the pace, like, and there's memes about it all the time, but like you look down for 5 seconds and there's stuff all over the board. Whereas now I can like rewind and play it at my own speed. I can play it at half the speed. So yeah, that's one thing I've really enjoyed. One of the harder parts of it, not, and this is more of like a logistical thing, but just like scheduling like midterm exams and stuff. Most professors have turned to open note, but like some professors obviously don't like that idea. So one of my professors, he just said no midterm and 80% on the final. But that one would be open note and we'd have like a week to do it. And then some professors just said no midterm this quarter, and so everyone's kind of dealing with it a different way. But yeah, just the hardest part of it is just kind of the exams and like how that professor decides to go about tackling that. But as far as the instruction, like Beitong said, they're all super understanding. So yeah, it's just a learning experience for everyone. Like everyone's doing their best.
Okay. How about getting involved on campus? Leanne, I know you've worked on campus. Beitong has been an orientation leader. What does that process look like for finding a job? Are there lots of jobs available for students? Where do you look? Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Leanne, do you want to start?
Sure. So I was a bus driver for Unitrans, which is our university bus system. And I found that via the website vacancy.ucdavis.edu. And that is a website that has all of the vacancies for jobs within ASUCD, which is our associated student body. So kind of like student council at your high school, or ASB, it's sometimes called. And so that's where all of the jobs, for example, from Unitrans to our coffee house are posted, as well as I think our student-run newspaper, The Aggie. But for jobs that aren't within ASUCD, you would go to Handshake, which is our I'm not the best at explaining this, and I know that Beitong has experience with explaining this and using it. So Beitong, I'm gonna hand the explanation of Handshake over to you and your experiences with working at Davis.
Okay, so if you do really want to find a job at UC Davis, like the first thing you want to do is use your student credential to log into a platform called Handshake. Don't just log into like the regular Handshake platform. That's for pretty much everybody. Like use your student ID and your password so you can use like the UC Davis version Handshake. And then on that platform, you'll be able to find on-campus and off-campus working opportunities. So for me, I have lots of experiences with finding on-campus jobs because, you know, since the moment I came to Davis, I started looking for a job. I really do see the necessity that to be more financially independent as a college student. So, you know, it didn't go well at first because I didn't have any experiences. And then I was worried a lot about they wouldn't hire me because I honestly don't have experiences. But it's really normal, you know, like the reasons why colleges are offering so many on-campus job positions to students is that they want to prepare you before you graduate. So always keep trying. If you have any trouble, we do have career advisor available on campus as well. So, you know, start early on finding a job and then reach out to your career advisor if you need any help on resume, cover letters, or even finding more opportunities, and then keep on trying.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Huey, do you have anything to add about the Internship Career Center?
Use them for one. Like, use everything on campus. You paid for it already. You might as well use it. And then, like, going on top of that is, like, once you leave Davis, you'll realize how luxurious, like, some of the services you had available to you were, like resume, cover letter help, free tutoring. Yeah, just make sure to kind of utilize all your resources on campus, just because you are paying for all of it.
Right. Speaking of all of the resources that students pay for, does anybody want to talk about the ARC and what the ARC stands for? Who uses the ARC? Or who did use the ARC when the ARC was open? Leanne, I know.
Yeah, so the ARC stands for the Activities and Recreation Center. And there you have a more traditional gym with a weight room, track, basketball courts, and things like that. But the ARC also offers exercise classes that you can take that is only a small fee per each quarter. So I think it's like $35, but don't quote me on that. You can look at the prices and things like that on, I think, arc.ucdavis.edu, ARC. But yeah, they have exercise classes that you can take. A lot of PE classes are held at the ARC. And it's really just a nice space since, again, you pay for it in your student fees. You don't have to pay anything extra for like a gym membership just to use the like facilities. So yep, that's the ARC.
And it just got renovated. I think it opened, what, this time last year, right? I think it was like April or something like that last year. So it's only been open or reopened for about a year or so. And I know there's a climbing wall, a big climbing wall. They moved that, and yeah. So lots and lots of nice things in there. Let's see, what other questions do we often get? Does anybody else have
one more
Oh
thing?
yeah, please go ahead, Kiwi. Yeah.
About the exercise classes and all the classes, the first 2 weeks of the quarter, I think all of them are like free to try. So that's really fun as well. And there's also some nutrition information there as well. And then beyond, or intramural sports, super fun. Get some friends together. There's like everything. My roommate does them all. There's like Quidditch, there's basketball, field hockey, softball. I don't know, most things you can think of. And the other fun thing on campus is the craft center. You can sign up for classes there as well. Fun little classes like book binding or like screen printing. Yeah, those are just my little additions to the ARC, and the shout out to the craft.
Yeah, Quidditch is kind of funny to see happening out there when that's happening. Do you guys want to talk about your class sizes and the, how you register for classes, what that process looks like, lower division, upper div? You guys want to talk about that? Kiwi? Oh, sorry, Leanne, go ahead.
No, sure. I can just go really quick rundown, because you'll learn all of this stuff at orientation, but so just the really quick 101. Your lower division classes are going to be classes that are from 1 to 99, and then upper division classes are the 100s. And basically that distinction is just like the lower division are often thought of as like prerequisites or GEs, whereas upper divisions are, once you finish all those prerequisites, typically upper division classes are going to be for your major. As far as class sizes go, I will say that some classes typically have really, really large lectures, but each class typically, this varies for if you go into like specialized classes, but usually classes have lecture sections, or sorry, discussion sections, which are smaller than the lecture, and they're basically just like a normal class size, 20 to 30 students with one TA leading it. So if you're worried about having that one-on-one with a like qualified instructor, don't worry, you will often have an opportunity to have that one-on-one FaceTime. And then as you get up to your upper division classes, the lectures will often be, you know, like less than 300 students. I think Khalil had one of our ambassadors is a tour guide, and he has a statistic for like
it's like 70% of classes. No, I don't remember what it is.
I feel like it was 70% of classes are less than 50 students.
It's something like that, yeah.
But don't quote me on that. Again, the tour guide agency at Davis did not hire me, so.
Anybody, did you want to add something, Kiwi? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll just say like, yeah, the lower divisions can often feel like overwhelming if you're coming from like a smaller school, even just from any school. Like you're in this giant lecture hall with like 500 students, or it might be a Zoom call for like, no one knows what's gonna happen in the fall. So that might be like really intimidating. But one thing you'll find is like like everyone next to you is really nice, and everyone's new and scared, and everyone just wants to make friends. So if you just say hi to the person next to you, like they're probably gonna be really nice about it. The professors obviously want you to learn. Just go to office hours, go to your discussion sections. That's where you'll find like more of a community and like smaller groups. Sometimes it might be hard to get into a class, especially with some of like the more popular majors like computer science, and some of the lower division math classes that kind of everyone has to take. So yeah, I mean, if you don't get into a class, it's not the end of the world. Talk to your advisor on how to schedule around things and how to like make the best of your time. But yeah, like just don't be scared. Everything will work out.
Great. All right. Should we talk about bikes? Should we talk about cruiser bikes? Is a bike needed? Should you bring a bike to Davis?
It depends on how you feel about walking. Davis is a really large campus, but it's also very flat. So I would say a majority of Davis has, like, people have bikes, but I might be a little bit skewed in my thinking of that because I do ride a bike. I think it's more time efficient, and getting around is a lot easier if you have a bike. However, it is not essential to like life on Davis, even though they want to convince you that the quintessential Davis student rides a bike, but that is just not true. Anyhow, yeah, bikes are necessary, but if you're wondering, oh, I don't have a bike, should I buy one? What's that looking like? I'd recommend just waiting a little bit because a lot of students, like graduating seniors like myself, might be looking to sell their bikes because they have no use for them after Davis. So you can get a really reduced rate on like pretty good bikes. I think also the Bike Barn, which is one of our ASU subsidiaries on campus, has a bike auction at the beginning of the year, but again, I'm not quite sure about that.
I think it's the campus police department that hosts the
Okay.
the bike auction because they go around and pick up all the abandoned bikes, right? Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
but that's a great resource for finding a good, cheap used bike.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's that. And then if you're like, I don't know what kind of type of bike to get, there's so many. I can advise you on what kind of bikes are like convenient to have. And the one thing that I have to say, and I've seen people, as Mark say, I've seen people get bike shamed over, is the handlebars of bikes. So if you'll notice on bikes that are like typically called like cruisers or beach cruisers, the handlebars are like really wide and you hold them like this and they're like, they come out and curve. Whereas like mountain bikes or other typical bikes just kind of have straight handlebars that you just hold onto and they're straight. And the only reason I recommend getting the ones with the straight handlebars is because the cruisers are harder to park. The bike parking spaces are like right next to each other. So if someone parks next to you, they're gonna get annoyed if you have a cruiser just because it's harder to park next to a cruiser. And then it's also kind of harder to park a cruiser. So that's my only recommendation in terms of buying a bike.
Kiwi, did you have a bike your first year?
Yeah. I had a pretty old bike. I think we had it for like 10 years, and I definitely recommend used. Just because if it's new, if it's flashy, if it looks nice, it as much as like wanna like it's not Davis students, people come from like out of town, but like bike theft does happen. I had a friend who they just took his bike and left his tire. So when he got back, he thought everyone was just like pranking him, and then realized it wasn't just a prank. But yeah, I definitely recommend investing in a good lock. They're called like U locks instead of like little cables. Bikes, like Leon said, they're extremely convenient in efficiency of getting around, but not essential. You can walk just fine. You can walk around campus and get wherever you need to go, or like to Trader Joe's or wherever. More kind of towards the second year, bikes are really nice just because you're not on campus anymore and it's a little bit further away. But at the same time, like then you have the bus system, which is pretty efficient, pretty convenient. But yeah, that's just what I'd say. Like, don't get a new one, get a good lock.
How about cars?
Oh yeah. I mean, oh sorry.
Go ahead.
So I do drive to campus like every day during the week because I live off campus and then it's kind of far away from the main campus. So as I have heard from the transportation and parking service office, the first year students are not allowed to bring cars to campus, right? But we do have zip cars available right across the Tesoro residential area. Student can rent a car. So I would say, and then if you bring your car to campus, you do have to pay a parking permit, so you don't get any tickets. So I would say it's quite amount of money if you bring your car to campus. And then to be honest, if you live in Davis, biking around is more efficient because there aren't that many traffic. And then I feel like all the bikers always have the privilege to go first. So they never yell, basically. Yeah, and then that's all my experiences.
Great. Okay. Let's see. So does anybody have any questions for us? If you have questions, put them in the box. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep asking questions.
Yeah, and we're happy to answer anything, even if it's not about student life or about like living in Davis, like the city itself. Don't be shy to ask a question.
Yep. Okay. Leanne, I know you're graduating this quarter. Are most students that you're around, your classmates, your friends, do most students finish in 4 years if they come in as a first-year student?
That is a good question, and I don't quite know the statistics on it. so I would recommend, I think they have statistics on it. There's a website called aggiedata.ucdavis.edu, and there they have like a treasure trove of data. If you're really, if you're a real data science aficionado, they have like everything there. But anyhow, I would say in like typically all of the people that I've kind of known since freshman year are going to graduate either now, like in their fourth year, or taking an additional year. So it's not uncommon for students to be fifth year students. So yeah, just take your time. Take your time. There really is no rush to finish college. Like for me, at least, I know there's a lot of different situations that you can be in. But anyhow, yeah, 4 years is pretty typical as long as you're meeting with an advisor regularly. And you can finish in 4 years, even if you change your major relatively late in the game.
Anybody have anything to add to that?
I kind of just want to emphasize the point of like not feeling a need to rush through college other than like financial reasons, but I mean, college just kind of is a really safe space and everyone wants to help you grow, from the faculty and staff to like companies, because companies love hiring students, they love helping young professionals. So yeah, college just kind of gives you the safe network, whereas like once you rush out, like you're a little bit more on your own. But yeah, no, I was just talking to a freshman the other day who came in. She was in dual enrollment in high school, so she came in with a bunch of credit, and she's in like a bunch of my upper division classes, and she just wants to finish her classes and get a job. And I was telling her like, slow your roll. Like I know you just want to rush out, but like there's a lot to learn. There's a lot going on. Like there's internships. There's a lot of stuff you can get out of college instead of just trying to rush through in like 2 years. But I mean, everyone's case is different.
Right. Yep. Okay, so we do have a question about the Equestrian Center. Has anyone taken classes at the Equestrian Center? Did you, Kiwi? No?
No. I had a floor mate who brought her horse, and we went to go see it sometimes.
Cool. Yes, I mean, it was a long time ago. I took classes at the Equestrian Center. But so, Kiwi, you have a friend who did board her horse at the Equestrian Center?
Yeah, I don't know all the details, but I know she was able to bring her horse.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure about working there or anything about that. But yeah, I just know she had a horse there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they do board, and I think, however, it is a first come, first served basis. And so, like we have a family friend who their daughter had a horse, and I think it took maybe a couple of quarters or maybe a year before she was able to get it on campus. But they do offer boarding, and a lot of the employees out there are students. And I'm sure it's probably through the handshake. Yeah, it would be through the Internship and Career Center, which is the handshake platform we were talking about earlier to find jobs at the Equestrian Center. Yeah, they offer classes. They have a bunch of barn horses that you can use to take classes, but I do know that students can board their horses there too. So
I'll put a link on your question, under your question, to the Equestrian Center. I don't know if you've seen that webpage, but it has some more information there.
Great, thank you, Leanne.
So I have heard about 2 positions from the centers. One is help to clean the horse. Like basically they have a barn and then they want students to help to clean those barns, basically take care of the horses. And then they also offer students the chance to be a horse riding instructors. So if you are really good at riding horse, maybe you can offer some classes and then you do get paid for doing that.
Awesome. What about research or internships? Has anybody participated in anything like that on campus yet?
I can start. I was part of econ research my sophomore year. How I got into that was I did really well in an econ class my freshman year, and the TA from that class asked me to help him with some stuff in the next year. So that was my research experience. It's super cool just because it's taking what I learned in the classroom and applying it to the real world and helping like develop a model and everything. And then as far as internships go, I had a couple. I had one with Kaiser, and then I had one with Sacramento Kings. And yeah, it's just you go from like learning about kind of theoretical topics and stuff to like applying it in a job setting, and you learn how to communicate in a professional environment. So you learn a lot of just different skills. Like instead of doing math and calculus all day, I was just working on like Excel sheets or like other like programming language and stuff. So everything you learn in the classroom is important, but you also learn different things in like internships and research and stuff.
Great.
All right, so I would also like to mention that the research opportunity no longer come from TA, which is teaching assistants. And teaching assistants are normally PhD students under that majors. It also comes from professors, right? So there are many professors here at UC Davis. It's part of their job to do research. So when they're in need of having research assistant, they give the job to either undergraduate students or graduate students, depends on the level of difficulties. So if you're really interested in doing research, there are 3 resources you can use. Like first, talk to your TA, and then second, talk to the faculty members under your major department, and then third, we have a office on campus called Undergraduate Research Centers. They specifically help students to find research opportunities.
Perfect. Do you guys want to talk about, so I know it's different being in remote world, but I think Beitang, you talked a little bit about it already, but do you want to just briefly talk about your experience working with faculty or just going in and talking to faculty, whether it's office hours, maybe talk about that, what that looks like and what that actually means. Are faculty available? Are they accessible? Are they intimidating? Do you want to just talk about your experience dealing and working with faculty on campus?
Yes, so I had experiences working with Professor Wilson, and then for those of you who have took her classes before, you all know that she's like very nice. So I went to her office hours, and then we interrupt a lot during the 2 quarters ago, and then by the end of the quarter, I asked her, "Can I please do research with you if possible?" And then she said yes. So and then she directed me to the economic major advisor office, so I can get like units for doing research with her. And then after I gone through the process, she emailed me that saying it's time for us to set up a individual meeting time. It's not during the office hours, but a different period of time that only she and I are in the meeting, so we can talk more about the independent research. And then I would say it was a really valuable experiences. You know, it only takes me like a few seconds to ask for the opportunities, and I get it. So I would say, you know, never hesitate to ask, because, you know, like one of the main jobs of all the professors here at UC Davis is really to help students grow. So, you know, like always ask, even though you are not like straight A students. No, I don't have all the A's under economic major, but I do get research opportunities with the faculty members because I do work hard. I do try to interact with them a lot, and then try to see if there's anything I can help to help them with their research, or even just to help myself grow. Yeah, that's
Great.
all.
Great. Should we keep talking about that, or should we talk about food?
Please talk about food.
Let's talk about food. So why don't we take turns? Kiwi, why don't you talk about the dining commons? Leanne, why don't you talk about food options on campus besides the dining commons? And Beitong, why don't you talk about food in Davis, in the city of Davis? Kiwi, why don't you go first about, tell us about the dining commons.
Yeah, so the dining commons are convenient for sure. Like you don't have to prep your own food. Like you waste no time. You just go in. There might be a line. Oh, it takes like 5 minutes to get in. I know they had a small switch last year or this year. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean overall, like everyone has different thoughts on how good the food is. I personally, I thought it was just fine. Some people grow tired of it.
It's
But
good.
yeah, I thought it was just fine. It's convenient. It takes no time. But yeah, there's 3 on campus. There's one in each living quarters.
Mhm.
Some people would tell you Segundo or Cuarto are better than Tercero. It's personal preference, in my opinion. There are some small option differences. Like I know Segundo had different cereals than Tercero. And I know I think late night was only offered at Segundo this year. Late night is kind of the coolest thing ever. You just go and they have like your midnight snack, like tater tots or like cookies or stuff. That was probably my favorite part of the dining commons. One time, me and my friends went and we snagged a whole 70 cookies. It was the experience. But yeah, Segundo and Tercero are usually pretty busy, whereas Cuarto is like some people use it as like a study area because it's like Cuarto in general is kind of smaller, it's quieter. But yeah, I think it's just fine.
Cool. Leanne, you want to talk about all the other stuff on campus?
Yeah, as far as on-campus dining options go, there's a lot of them. Within the coffee house, which is more often called the Coho, we have a bunch of different places to eat. There's Tex-Mex, which is like a Mexican food area. There's like place that serves casseroles, a salad place, pho, and then a deli. And that's within the Coho, and they're run by the school, I believe. Then we also have on the, I think it's the south side of campus, a building called the Silo, which also has Pete's, as well as a place called the Spokes, which is more of a traditional like fast food that serves like hamburgers, French fries, and things like that. But then also one of the coolest things I think is at the Silo, they bring in food trucks. So when I was when I was in Segundo freshman year, they would often bring like a food truck into Segundo, but I think since they've started just bringing them into and on campus, not just the Silo. So there's some that are next to the Memorial Union,
yeah,
which is one of the main places around campus, and they'll switch those out. And then there's the Silo, and then they also like a really like there's a cult following for this place called Shaw's. With good reason. Shaw's is really great. It's like you can see Mark and Kiwi really like it, but they have like rice and then a protein to go on top, so like chicken, beef, or yeah, and lamb, I think. And then their white sauce that goes on top of this is like legendary. I had a friend who moved to like Ohio for med school, and she was like, hey, if you can go to Shaw's and try and figure out what their white sauce recipe is, like I will love you forever. So yeah, like my love for Thai tea started from one of these food trucks. I could go on, but those are the options. So you're never really gonna get like tired or bored of food because there's always something new to try.
I'm just gonna tack on before Beitong says anything. Oh, Kiwi, were you gonna talk about Aggie Cash?
No, I just want to add one small thing to Shaw's, that they do have a vegetarian option of falafels, and there's a new food truck called Nash and Proper that sells fried chicken, and that is the best stuff I've ever had.
Yeah. I was just going to add about Aggie Cash. So when you live in the dorms, it's part of your meal plan now that you get a certain amount of Aggie Cash that you can use across campus. I don't think, you guys should correct me, I don't think the food trucks take Aggie Cash, do they?
When I was a freshman, they did.
Oh, okay. So they might do
They
it.
might.
But other places outside of the dining halls take the Aggie Cash. So you can use your reg card to just swipe to get meals on campus. Okay. Beitong, do you want to talk about downtown Davis and some of the options that students have there?
Yes, so I do very much love downtown Davis because they have so many boba places. Like, we can go to IT, we can go to T4. There are also some other places for bobas if you like, but I don't remember them because like IT and T4 are my top two choice. So, and then there are also like many. Oh, sorry, Mark. Do you have anything to say?
I was just gonna say Mandro over in my neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, that one is pretty good as well, but not my favorite. So, and then there are also many other restaurants from, like, there are also many other restaurants that sells like Chinese food, Indian food, Mexican foods as well. I really do love the breakfast burritos from Alibaba. Like, everybody loves it because it's available all day and it tastes so good. Plus, you get points for buying the burritos. If I remember it right, if you buy 5 burritos and then you get the 6 months for free. And then yeah, and then there are also some bars at downtown Davis. Like, those are not like alcohol bar, okay? Like, you shouldn't really drink any alcohol if you are under 21. And then it was just some of the late night bar, they open really late, but they offer regular food to students. I have heard one of my friends who work for one of the downtown restaurants that opens until midnight. So, she asked me to pick her up after she get off from job, but I say no because I live in Sacramento. I can't just come back at like 12 p.m. and then go pick her up and then send her back to her apartment and then drive back to Sacramento. That doesn't make sense. So yeah, she actually ended up asking someone else to help her. So I would say there are many things for you to explore at downtown Davis. I am not going to tell you everything. So you will find out more surprise when you actually visit Davis downtown.
Yep. And the great thing about Davis campus and the city of Davis is that they are literally right next door to each other. So in this picture, there's a bike path on this grass area on this side of the grassy area, and that's A Street. And then, so that is the beginning of downtown. So this is campus, and then the beginning of downtown is right next to the campus. And Alibaba's is like literally like, nope, this way. It's like right over here. So it's right next to campus. Okay. Anybody have any parting thoughts for our guests about anything? Food, campus life, academics?
I just want to say congratulations for getting into Davis. It was an amazing 4 years and can't believe it's come to an end. So enjoy it while you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll just add, like, make the most of your experience. Like, college is a really special opportunity. Anything like you really want to get involved with or anything you want to do, like someone will help you achieve that goal or dream.
100%. Beitong, any final thoughts?
Congratulations. And then UC Davis is a really good campus. I do hope you guys will have a good time here after you actually come here. And then yeah, like, congratulations again.
And maybe after a year or so, join the ambassadors of Letters and Science.
Yes, exactly. This is the internship program.
And get this really cool t-shirt.
Yes, and a really cool name badge. Probably like the best around the campus. It looks very good.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks to our ambassadors. Thank you, Beitong, Leanne, and Kiwi. Thanks for coming. We hope to see you in the fall. Congratulations. Bye.